Having an exceptional relationship with your spouse affects every single aspect of your life and is crucial for experiencing your dream life together. I'm Rob Murgatroyd.
And I'm Kim Murgatroyd. Listen in on our honest, filter-free conversations as we navigate life and business together without killing each other.
You'll learn by osmosis how to transform the friction you feel in your relationship into a purposeful foundation that will allow you to grow together.
Welcome to the Friday Podcast.
Kimberly, raising a tween, how are you this lovely, easygoing, stress-free morning?
I've already grounded her for life, and it's 8:03. So we're doing great. Bethany Frankel has a tween. Now, her tween is older than our tween, but she's doing TikTok videos about dealing with her tween. And I have never identified with a TikToker more. Sophia, I told her this morning, I said, you have two speeds. You're either this angelic, grateful, sweet angel, or you're like the Grim Reaper. There's no middle ground. It's either like her head is spinning around and pea soup is coming out, or she's so sweet. And I don't know which one's my kid. I actually think neither are my kid. I don't know who inhabited her body or what's happening, but.
And yet you women are biologically driven to want this, right?
Well, we don't want that, but yeah.
Yeah, but that is that.
No, I could say the same about guys. Guys are biologically driven to bang the chick with the boobs and all the makeup. And then you take that home and then the basket of crazy unravels. And I could say the same. So it's very similar.
How crazy are we talking? What kind of basket of crazy?
Not a good basket.
This is not why we're here today.
No.
We are here today to talk about something interesting, as opposed to something not quite so interesting. What's interesting, when you're in the process of writing a book, you get these other ideas and then you go, oh, okay, this doesn't really belong in this book. This is probably its own book. And so I've had a lot of those kind of thoughts coming. And one of those thoughts is this idea that I have for a book called When Is Enough. By the way, I'm perfectly happy sharing all of that because if you want to steal it and write a fucking book and market it, knock yourself out. I think for guys particularly, and I think there are some women that fall into this category as well, I think money drives the car for a lot of their life. I know certainly I have a lot of friends who've spent a big chunk of their life just driving the decisions that they make for their life, the vision that they have for their life is filtered through money being the one that is driving the car, to use a metaphor, right? And so the way I think that manifests is they say, I'm going to do X because it's going to lead to Y, instead of just doing X because it's fun. So in other words, they're like, I want to do this thing. Why are you doing it? I'm doing it because in the future, I'm going to have a payoff from it. I'm going to work 10 hours a day because in the future, I'm going to build a company to sell. I'm going to work my ass off doing this job that I don't like because in the future, it's going to give me a bigger business, right? And I think the day that you stop trading a better today in pursuit of a better tomorrow is the day that life gets more fun. So in other words, when you stop doing what you're doing today that you really don't want to do because it's going to pay off in the future, then I think you won the game. That's the thesis for the book, right? That's my idea. Okay, if I can do a sales job here a little bit further before we get into, yeah, it must be nice. How the hell do you do that? Which is obviously going to be the bulk of the book. But can you do things without a future payoff? So what does that look like? Can you follow your curiosity? Can you do things just because you want to do it and it's fun? Can you do things in your day just because it's enjoyable? Or do you only have to do something today because in the future it's going to pay off? I think that's the game that needs to be played. And then I think once you understand that is what the vision is, that is what I want to do, then you have to now reverse engineer it and go, okay, what does that look like? And I think what fits in nicely there is the conversation that we've had in other podcasts about striving and working towards your dream life income, because that dream life income is going to be the thing that's going to allow you to do that. But the problem is that most people will triple that number when they set the number. So go ahead.
Let me just say this, though, because the whole point of when is enough is you have to have enough, right? And so a lot of the people listening to this, it's like, But if I have to do something that I don't like to do, that's not my dream, so I can hit that first barrier of enough, sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get there. And I think we talk often about creating that vision for what you want and reverse engineering it. Sometimes there's a bridge involved. Sometimes there's, I'm going to sit my ass on two horses involved. I don't think you can just drop the thing you don't like to do and skip off into the sunset doing the thing you love to do. In reality, there has to be a bridge involved. The bigger thing that I believe prompted this idea is living with intention. You're at the part in the current book that you're writing where you're uncovering that for the first, 35 years of your life, you led by default. It was like, okay, I need to go to high school, graduate, and then I need to go to college and get a degree and get a job and make sure I choose something that makes money. And then I need a wife and then I need a kid. There wasn't a real design aspect. Like you had this driver to live in California, but when you graduated chiropractic school, you didn't go to California. Like, how did that slip by you? It slipped by you because a guy walked in and said, I'm hiring, and you went, I need a job, and you stayed. I think part of what you're saying is, yes, it sounds really nice, must be nice to just be able to do more things you want to do and less things you don't. But sometimes the bridge has to be involved. The bigger conversation, I think, is about living intentionally. And it depends where you are in your timeline, right? If you're 20, and you're listening to this and you're about to graduate college, we're screaming, design your life. Start now. Make the design. I'm going to use our older daughter as an example here. She's 25. Design your life. She's heard us say this over and over. So what did she do? She found a job that she does really well in. Is it her dream? Is it lighting her up to be doing what she's doing? I don't know. It's sales, but it's means to the end, right? And she makes good money, but the biggest benefit to her is that she can work from anywhere and she's flexible in that. So I was texting with her yesterday about dates coming to Italy and she has a lot of flexibility. So at 20 years old, she's coming out of the gate, only accepting a job that allows her flexibility to work from anywhere and travel. It's very different than if you're 50 and listening to this and you've had a career for 25 years. And now you need to bridge and sit your ass on two horses to be able to reverse engineer doing something that you love.
I 100% agree. Peter Attia has a book out. He's a MD. It's called Outlive. And he talks about, why are you going to the gym? What's the purpose? I'm going to be competing in a marathon, a triathlon, an Ironman. Okay. Then we can backcast and reverse engineer what you need to do when you're in the gym. You have a goal and you know what you're doing. I think in this particular example, it's the same thing. What's the game you're playing here? So if you're 20 or even if you're 50, you might be 30 years late, but you could still do it, is my point. What is the game you're playing? To your point, here's where I think it gets screwy. I don't have this thing fully worked out yet, so it's helpful to me to have these conversations because I'm taking some notes now as I clarify this amorphous blob that's in my head of an idea. I don't think you can have it all. It's not something that perhaps the listener of this podcast, something that they readily identify with, the idea of not being able to have it all. But I don't think you can have it all. I think you can have what's most important to you. And I think figuring out what's most important to you and putting that in order, like I've got coaching clients that I'm having them list out what's most important to them. And what's interesting is when I get down, it's almost a little bit of a trick that I play with them. And somewhere on there, I make them narrow it down to a list of 5 priorities. My marriage, my health, my finances, my business, whatever, my relationship with my children, whatever the priorities are for them. And invariably, they'll have in the top 5 health. And they'll usually write it subconsciously as like number 4, right? And then I'll start asking questions. What's more important to you, your health or your marriage? And they'll go, my health. And I'll say, what's more important to you, your health or your business? And they'll go, my business. And as I keep doing that, ultimately, even for the people that are very religious, what's more important with you, your health or your relationship with God? Even then, they'll go, if I don't have my health, I can't have a relationship with God because I'll be sick and fat or dead. So I can't. Once you're forced to put these in priority order, then you look and say, okay, I only have so much bandwidth in my life, and I've got these 5 things alone, which is my health, my marriage, my business. They're all there. how am I supposed to be Elon Musk and Brad Pitt? Like, how can I do all of that? And you can't. What you can do is what's most important. Okay, so now you take this thing that's number 5, which is business on your list, except the way you're showing up is 90% of your life is spent in that one category, and it's spent in pursuit of this thing that you're going to have later.
The concept on that is a lot of people come in and they're like, I'm going to do this now, and in 3 years, I'm going to flip it, sell it, or whatever. And then I'm going to be free and I'm going to have made the money. That's what you were saying last night. If I just do X for 3 years, and I will be able to have Y later. And that sounds like a really great concept. But here's the thing. That X keeps shifting. And that 3 years turns to 5, turns to 7, turns to 25. It doesn't go the way you think. And your goals shift because your circumstances shift. Maybe the business does better than expected. Maybe it does worse than expected. Maybe you get an influx of cash from something. There's a million ways that this could go. But at the end of the day, we're constantly 3Xing our goals. If you wanted to make 100,000 a couple years ago, chances are your new goal is 300,000. If you wanted to make 300,000, your new goal is 1 million. We just are constantly 3Xing. I remember being 20, and if I could just make 6 figures, oh my God, the life I'd live. I remember this in my head going, if I on my own, by myself, could make 6 figures, I would never have to make another dollar. This is inaccurate because that goal became 300 and keeps going. And that's the problem. That's the fly in the ointment. Is that the thing?
It's a canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, that's it right there. Many moons ago, when you and I did Jet Set Life, it was all about live your life now and don't just keep pushing off and delaying living your life because someday I'm going to XYZ. Someday is today. And that was the whole point of that company. It was to live life today. That doesn't mean spend every nickel and be a moron. It means do things today that fill your soul, that fill all the areas of your life. And don't just say, when I hit this goal, then I'm going to live my life, because that goal is going to keep moving and you're going to be 75 and you're not going to have lived your life. You're going to be walking around Florence with those poles.
I also think that when you really look at people who are doing this, who are spending their lives following their curiosity and doing things that are exciting to them, they're generally much happier people, right? I think this is like 2 parts. First, it's the philosophy of it, which is, do I want this for my life? Do I want to have a life where I am not doing things today for some future benefit? And if you do, what does it look like to set that up? Because you're right. At some point, you're going to have to sit your ass on 2 horses. At some point, you're going to have to do the work. At some point, you're going to have to build the thing. But then there's that middle ground of continually 3Xing it, and it just never stops, and it just keeps going. And then that moves into, when is enough enough? It's never enough. I want it all. You can't have it all.
When you say you can't have it all, it makes me feel like, why? Because all, to me, is only the things that are important to me. It's not literally all. I don't want to be a marathon runner. I don't want 400 kids. When I think of what all is to me, it's my children, it's my husband, it's travel, it's living in Italy, it's cooking.
I don't think that's the way most people think. I think the way most people, particularly entrepreneurs, if you ask guys, would you want to be a billionaire? A lot of guys are going to say yes, depending upon their age. At some point, they'll usually go, okay, that ship has sailed once you get old enough. But there is a philosophy, particularly with entrepreneurial people and particularly younger, that they want to go, I want to be Brad Pitt, I want to be Jeff Bezos, I want to be, and they just go all the way down and they want it all. You're much more logical in your approach, which is, I know what's important. I've identified my priorities, and that's what I'm going after. I don't think people think that way. I can tell you from coaching clients that they do want it all. And so maybe the words it all is not the right words.
Well, maybe you can have it all, just not at the same time. So while you're trying to be Bezos, Bezos is on his second wife and 600th fling.
That's exactly right, because you pay for it. So I think identifying this, and then I think once you get the wheels in motion and say, okay, Now, this comes back to the conversation of vision, right? Dream life and vision. What's the vision look like? The vision looks like where I'm waking up in the morning and I'm following my curiosity. I'm working on projects that matter to me, that are interesting to me, that I find curious, and that I'm not doing it for any future benefit. I'm doing it because it's fun. I'm doing it because it's enjoyable. How do you do that? I think, and this is for those that are a bit younger than I am or smarter than I am, I think the way to do that, and this is really beyond my pay grade right now, but this is what keeps popping up for me, is to have your money making money. So if you've got investments that are set up, most of the people I know who are really able to do this at scale, they've got investments that are set up where they've done the work, they made investments, and their money is making money.
They were smart.
And they eliminated the block of not being able to do this because they had to go out and work the income. So even though I'm old, the goal that I want right now is to be able to have investments. And I think there's a stair-stepping for us and maybe even for people listening too. We're moving more into automation, which is courses and books and things like that. I think that's a step in the right direction on having money coming in. But I think the ultimate ticket is to take that money and buy investments that are throwing off money so it really is automated.
So if you bring this back to where you started, tie it in a bow for me.
It's a classic Stephen Covey. Begin with the end in mind. What does the end look like for you? The end looks like I wake up, I'm not doing things for the future. I'm doing things I'm interested in. I'm doing things I'm curious about. I'm doing things that I enjoy. And your brain is automatically going to go, yeah, must be nice. How the hell do I do that? That's your job to figure out. That's your job to ask the universe to help you figure out. That's the job to have the conversation with people and go, okay, he said that one of the ways, because my brain is going, how? One of the ways is to set up investments. Well, that makes sense to me. If I had 10 houses or 10 strip malls that were producing $1 million a year, then yeah, okay, but is it $1 million then? Is $1 million the number for you? I think it's 3. Why do you think it's 3? And then now you have to start asking deeper questions of when is enough? How much money is enough? Because I can tell you, I coach people who make multiple millions of dollars a year and they laugh at how much money they're making. They think it's a pittance because they're in a world where they go into a room where the tax bill they had this year was $30 million. And your 2 million or 3 million is nothing compared to what they're doing.
I think it's really easy to do that because you made me watch this show last night with Adam Sandler. You are so not invited to my bar mitzvah. I didn't grow up in New York. You did. I didn't grow up in the world where someone throws a $150,000 coming out party when they're 15. My mom gave me a cake and I had 3 friends sleep over and we played with a Ouija board. It was very different when I turned 16.
And you're all the better for it.
Yes, but my bigger point is I didn't grow up around that. I know we've talked about this before, but it's worth repeating. When Rob and I met and we went to LA for the first time, he took me down Rodeo Drive and slowly pronounced the names of the designers and made me repeat them. I knew nothing. I had never seen it. I had never been around it. I grew up with Marshalls and TJ Maxx and Kmart and what was the other one? Caldor. It wasn't my life. For me to look at a show like you're showing me and these elaborate parties, and I'm going to use New York here, this New York keeping up with, screw the Joneses. I don't even know who you're keeping up with in New York, but I can imagine when you're constantly in that environment, the need or the nudge to have more and more, because it's, if this TV show or movie, whatever it is accurate, then you're completely judged by this, which is so far from where I grew up. I grew up in New Hampshire. It is so far from that level. But then to have these grown-up adult eyes that I have living in Italy, when I see that some of the happiest people in my neighborhood probably have never made more than $25,000 a year, and they're the happiest people skipping down the road in the community, it's a mindfuck because the bar mitzvah show implication is that they're happy. And I have to imagine that as soon as you throw your $150,000 party, the next bitch is coming in and she's trying to one up you. And then if you get one up, you don't get another shot at your bar mitzvah. So what's next? Your wedding, right? And so it becomes this never ending game of one-upping and not being good enough and treating people like shit.
And which of those two that you just described is more likely to go on Prozac?
Like at 8. So I think that there's an element too of understanding where people are in their environment. And it's easier for you to understand it than me because I didn't grow up in it. You grew up feeling less than because you were from Queens.
I witnessed it, but couldn't participate in it, which was even more fucking torture at the time. But at this time, the contrast of the two, it's super clear because now I have the benefit of hindsight. Now I see what happened to all those kids.
Right. And so that's the thing. But then you have adults that are still living in that world that are participating in it, that are unhappy, that marriages are failing, that kids don't know who the hell they are.
Or check this out. The father or mother is now going to work his ass off so he can give his little bat mitzvah girl the $150,000 coming out party. So guess what he's doing? He's separating himself from his family to make the money to throw the party that she feels not enough in because, and this happens, he didn't have Paul McCartney singing at the bat mitzvah because some of these parties, they have Beyonce come in for a corporate event.
And at the end of the day, it comes down to, and you keep saying this, there's nature, nurture, neighborhood, right? And so your neighborhood impacts this. And this is the part of designing a life. This is the part of not living by default. When we looked at moving to Italy, one of the biggest components was raising Sophia in this environment and all of the benefits that were associated with it. It wasn't a Kim and Rob just really like pasta and wine, so they moved to Italy and blah, blah, blah. I really looked at this and went, this is important in the raising of my kid. So that's where the design comes in. I know this was all over the place, but I hope it was a good conversation for all.
No, I think it is your vision. One of the things that you're trying to wrestle with all these ideas of where do I put my focus? What am I actually after? Why am I doing this?
Well, and that's the biggest part is the why are you doing this?
Hopefully we've given you enough to think about or more clarity to help you figure this out. We created a Bomb Diggity course that is not called Bomb Diggity, but I think it should be. It's a super simple name for this idea. So if you're trying to figure out what your vision looks like, we'll put a link down in the show notes so that you can get it. That's it for this week, and we'll see you next week. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody, if you've ever thought about coming to hang out with Kim and I on one of our next Rob and Kim Italia events and you want to learn more, just click the Rob and Kim Italia link in the show notes and add your name and email, and we'll send you all the details as soon as they're available. We are obsessed with this country and how it affects you, and we want to share that magic of culture, food, wine, art, architecture, and some secret magic moments that we've cooked up with you. So be sure to add your name because these events sell out quickly.